Nestled at the foot of the Mendip Hills in Somerset is the small city of Wells. It's an area of outstanding natural beauty with the River Sheppey running through it. However, don't let that fool you, as it contains a dark history. If you scrape under the surface, you find pain and bloodshed. Kind of like a verruca.
From famous bands to a full-blown rebellion, join me, Neville Crunk, as we go back in time in black and white. Except time travel hasn't been invented yet. And this is just a black and white effect. This is the City Arms pub. It used to be the City Gaol, which is just a fancy way of saying it was a jail. And that's evident to today, as there are still barred windows, locks and chains, a solitary cell, and stinky old men. But there is conflict here, and I'm not talking about the bar fights. There are hauntings of the most feared thing in olden times: women. Inside, you can still see that's evident to today, as there are still barred windows. Of course, back then you couldn't relax with a drink because you were too busy being punished for your crimes. The Gaol was established in 1779 or 1549. People were a bit hazy on that, and it was mainly a lockup for a temporary accommodation for those who were going to court. The main reason it was because they were going on session or for Aziz. For accommodation, it was quite snug. The ground floor is a room on each side of a lobby or passage, around 9 feet wide. It had 2 other rooms above them, around 15 square feet, around the same size as the closet I came out of, and had 2 iron-grated windows and a fireplace each. However, after it had been converted into a pub, the daughter and the mother both died in the fire. Their names, Emily and Isabel. There's also said to be a black character called the Hangman. Personally, I don't believe in ghosts, but if I believe hard enough, like Father Christmas, then maybe he can give me presents each year.
To talk about this more, I'm meeting up with a local historian who knows more than me.
Hello.
Hello.
Who are you and what are you?
Well, my name's Nick Axton. I'm actually a philosopher. I have a PhD in philosophy, but I'm a volunteer at the Wells and Mendip Museum.
Why was it closed?
I guess it was a kind of town lockup. I don't think it was ever a proper jail for this part of Somerset. The people who were brought to trial at Wells usually came from Ilchester, which, although is only a little town, was Roman. And then there was Shepton Mallet Jail, which was, huge. And so I think it was more like the town lockup. I don't suppose they kept people there for years, because mostly they didn't keep people in jail for years. You either got executed or beaten or put in the stocks or sent to Jamaica. The only people they kept in jail for a long time were like people who were in debt, and then they keep their debt until they could pay off their debts.
2 women died in the fire at the pub, named Emily and Isabel. Why didn't the smoke alarms go off?
Well, there certainly weren't any smoke alarms. So they wouldn't have gone off. But I don't know about these 2 who died in a fire. Curiously enough, there weren't many fires in Wells. Wells has never been burned down.
This is the Mendip Hospital Cemetery, which was used as the Mendip Hospital or the Somerset and Bath proper lunatic asylum. It's where long-stay elderly people and mentally ill people used to stay. They had a variety of events here, such as balls. According back to an annual report in 1949, it was inadequate for needs and was an accommodation for 876 male and female patients. There are places such as an administration hospital, tuberculosis sanatorium, 6 houses, a male nurses hostel, a patient's villa, and an occupational therapy unit. The general health during the year was still good, but there were still deaths. 27 men and 32 women died, the main causes being senility and heart disease, but the rest we don't know, as they were caused by a variety of deaths. However, there were 60 men and 84 women who were discharged. Instead of gravestones, patients here were buried with numbers and iron markers. There was one woman who was a prostitute and homeless back in the day, and no one wanted anything to do with her, but now she's known and immortalised. The Mendip Hospital Cemetery is the last resting place for nearly 3,000 patients, each with their own history. There's also a chapel here, but the cemetery is only open from April to September. The reason I'm here is because I'm special, just like all these people. What would a day in the life of a patient be like there? Would it be like Butlins, or less, or more horrifying?
It wouldn't be exactly like Butlins, but it's probably more like Butlins than like being in a jail, you know, if you see what I mean. They'd have to go and sit down and have food. They probably expected to go to the chapel and pray.
Why don't we lock people away anymore?
Oh, we do. Yeah, absolutely. There are mental hospitals. They're not big ones like that, because for better or worse, at the time that closed, 1991, thereabouts, there was a policy adopted called Care in the Community, which was adopted on kindly grounds, but in fact consisted in not doing anything. People who were previously given a bed and a room and meals every day and weren't. They had to live in a hostel, and then they wandered around town in the day looking mad. Unless they were so mad that they were a danger to themselves or other people, in which case they get locked away.
This is the Crown at Wells. You may recognise it from Hot Fuzz, but I've never watched Hot Fuzz, so I don't. It was first created in 1450 by Bishop Beckington as some houses. However, the Pen Bar was split into two, providing a bar for the Crown Coaching Inn and a separate inn for the Royal Oak. Then, some bloke from Pennsylvania, named after a pen, Will.i.am Penn, decided to make a speech from that window, probably. However, it was stopped by a constable with a warrant from the mayor to arrest him for unlawful assembly. So next time he could do it at a local school, because we all know how much they like assemblies. Directly across from us is the Marketplace Square, where we see something called Bloody Aziz. It was here where Wells saw the bloodiest executions. Judge George Jeffreys, nicknamed the Hanging Judge, led the brutal trial of those accused of supporting the Monmouth Rebellion. It was a group of indenial Protestants led by James Scott, first illegitimate son of Charles II and first Duke of Monmouth, and they opposed James II due to his Catholicism. It started at the Antelope Hotel in Dorchester before coming to here in Wells. More than 1,400 prisoners were sentenced to death, over 300 sentenced to be hung, drawn and quartered. Some 800 to 850 men and women were sent to the West Indies, as they were better off alive as cheap labour than dead. Once it was finished, Jeffreys returned to London, where he was rewarded by King James to be Lord Chancellor. The Battle of Sedgemoor was the final battle of the rebellion, consisting of an army of conformists, artisans and farm workers. They fought a series of skirmishes with the local militias and regular soldiers. However, at the end, the government was victorious and Monmouth fled, but was captured, taken to London and executed 9 days later. It was created by Will.i.am Penn, who was a Quaker. Did he invent Quaker oats? Because they're disgusting.
Well, first of all, the crown in Wells was not invented by William Penn or Will.i.am Penn or anything like that. He just went there. No, he invented Pennsylvania.
something much, much, much bigger.
Actually, in 1685, the same year as the Monmouth Rebellion. That was a busy year, I tell you. He was famous. His father was an admiral who'd helped organise Charles II coming back from the continent to be king again after Cromwell. William Penn's father had died, and the crown owed him a lot. So the king gave William Penn all the land in North America from the Delaware River in the east, from what was then New Jersey, the colony of New Jersey in the north, all the way down to the colony of Maryland. It's enormous. It's the whole of Pennsylvania and Delaware. Now, it made him, in I think about 1681, the biggest private landowner in the world who wasn't royal. I think it's about the same area as England, as the whole of England, and he'd just been given it.
They used fear to control people's loyalty, but if people were truly loyal, then they wouldn't have rebelled. Why did they? Was King James II that bad?
What people feared was another civil war. It was quite within living memory. The Commonwealth had finally ended only in 1660, so it was only 25 years since then. And the Commonwealth had been fairly difficult, being run by major generals. And before that, there'd been the war between the royalists and the parliamentarians, and it had ripped people apart, families apart. And most people just wanted a quiet life.
To end on a lighter note, here we are in front of the Bishop's Barn. We don't really know what it was used for, except we do. It was used for rent and tithes, which was probably an old-fashioned VAT. However, it was also used in Bloody Aziz, where royalist troops were quartered. But in 1887, it was given to Lord Arthur Avery for recreation and amusement, which was a huge tone shift from blood to fun. In the 1970s, the barn saw famous bands play here, such as Slade, Status Quo and Supertramps, with up to audiences of 1,500. This is about all the information there is, as the Wikipedia page I was reading off didn't have anything else to cover apart from new renovations and local bands, and the occasional party, like food festival. Let's see what the local historian has to say. What was it originally used for? Why didn't the bishop own it?
Well, the bishop must have owned it because he gave it to the city in about 1880. There was a system called tithes, and the church got all this payment from all the landowners. Well, they didn't have money to pay, so they paid in produce.
I heard Slade, Status Quo and Supertramp played in the barn, but I couldn't find any pictures. Why is that? Didn't people have their phones out?
No phones. Well, phones, but they were big black things that sat on the sideboard and were wired to the wall, so you certainly couldn't take them out, and they certainly did not take pictures. You might have taken with a camera, but not many people had cameras in those days, and if you did take a picture with a camera, you then had to go down to Boots and get the thing developed. Probably a bit dark in there, so you wouldn't be allowed to use a flash. Mostly don't have cameras, or they only took holiday photos and things like that.
Well, there you have it. Who knew Wales had such a dark and deep history? Well, I've learned that the small city has been the forefront of conflict for the ages. But the only thing we can take away from this is that we can only apologise for our past mistakes and strive to be better in the future, which hopefully Wales will continue to be.